All right, everybody. Welcome live. This is the Cooper Naylor Show right here on Saber Broadcast Network. So glad that you could join us here this evening. Of course, tonight, as you saw in the title, we are going to be talking about the Super Bowl. Doesn't just mean about what happened on the field, but there's a lot of other stuff as well. When it comes to Patrick Mahomes, of course, he's been in the news a lot since the Super Bowl ended. And then we're going to talk about something else that I'm interested in, which is the performance of Jim Nantz and Tony Romo. Of course, people are kind of irritated with Romo for the way it ended, which I'm going to tell you why I think he did a good job for the most part. So, of course... Oh, turn the mic up. Okay? Is that good right there? Let me know if that is better on the mic. So, Colton, if you are watching, please let me know if that helped any. But either way, I'm going to turn it up just a little bit more just so that it can be a little bit louder. Okay. So he says good. Okay. So let's go ahead and dive into some stats for the game. And this was a matchup that, if you really look at it, it came down to the fourth quarter and overtime. That's where we got the biggest chunk of what we were looking for. Before it was, I think, heading into the fourth quarter. Let me see real quick. Okay. So, give me just a second to get all these stats pulled up real quick. Okay. Going into halftime, San Francisco was up 10-3. And it was really at that point, really not a lot going on in the game except it was just a lot of good defense being played, in my opinion. I feel like, it wasn't really what the offenses were doing. It's more about the defenses played really well. Of course, if you watch the game, you do realize Drake Greenlaw, he got injured. I think it was the first half. He was going out for punt coverage, and he just took he was running, and he took an awkward step, and then he fell down to the ground, tore an Achilles. I don't know if he's going to be able to play next season. So, of course, that's kind of unfortunate for him. But, I mean, you look at the Niners up 10-3, and then, of course, the Chiefs scored 10 points in the third quarter, go up 13-10. And then, game goes in overtime, tied at 19. And, of course, Chiefs win the game 25-22 in overtime. So, really, we look at some team stats to get an idea of how this game went. And when I say this game was really even, it really was. When you look at first downs, the Chiefs had 24 to 23 of the Niners. Both teams had 15 passing first downs. Chiefs had 9 rushing first downs to 5 of San Francisco. And then first downs for penalties, the Niners had 3. Here's really, I think, one of the big things in the game. The Niners were 3 for 12 on third down, and the Chiefs were 9 of 19. That's huge right there. Fourth downs, both teams 1 of 1 on fourth down. So total plays, Chiefs ran 79 plays. The Niners ran 71. Chiefs had 455 total yards to 382 for the Niners. Both teams had 13 drives. Both teams on yards per play, Chiefs 5.8, Niners 5.4. If you look at the passing yards, Chiefs had 325 to 272 of San Francisco. And then you look at the rushing attempts, Kansas City 130, San Francisco 110. And penalties, Chiefs 6 for 55, Niners 6 for 40. And the Niners held the ball for 38 minutes and 31 seconds to 36-26 for Kansas City. So, where do I think that the thing... I mean, really the third down efficiency is a huge discrepancy within the game, if you look at it. And really, I feel like stats doesn't do a lot of it justice because, like I said, first half was just, I thought, really good defensive performances from both sides. And then I just feel like second half, it was just, I mean, the Chiefs definitely turned it on in the second half. And really, I think it was one of those things where the Niners, they got up 10-3 at halftime, had a lead 19-16 with a few minutes left in the game in the fourth quarter, but it never seemed like Kansas City was really in a bad position. I mean, okay, let's go back and look at all three of the Super Bowls that Mahomes has won, and you look at some point in the second quarter that Mahomes and the Chiefs were down 10 points and ended up going and winning the Super Bowl. So, Mahomes and the Chiefs, you have to respect greatness when it is there. The Chiefs, they just took advantage. And really, San Francisco and really Kyle Shanahan, it's the third Super Bowl that Shanahan's either been offensive coordinator or been the head coach. All three of them, he's blown a lead that he could have won the Super Bowl. You're not going to get a lot of chances in the National Football League to win a Super Bowl. And he's had 3 opportunities, and he's blown all 3. He is the only coach to have been involved in both overtime games within the Super Bowl. Now, of course, you think about it, Patriots, Falcons. Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator for that Falcons team. They were up 28-3 and lost the game. In this game, they were up 19-16 with a few minutes left in the game. Kansas City goes and gets a field goal, ties the game, and then, of course, scores a touchdown in overtime. So, is there any decisions Shanahan made during the game that was kind of questionable? You could say so. One thing is taking the ball to begin overtime, and you go down and just score a field goal. That was a questionable move, in my opinion, because you look at it, I would have said, okay, Mahomes, go down the field, and let's see, can you score a touchdown, or are you going to be forced to take a field goal? And you know what? I would deferred and let Kansas City have the ball, because, of course, with the new rules, within overtime, in the playoffs, both teams get a shot. But here's the difference, though, because players on the Niners didn't realize that the rules had changed, because they thought, oh, take the ball, go down, score a touchdown, you win the game. And that's not so. So, and that's the thing, is the Chiefs, they were told all throughout the year about what it was going to be like for the new rules with the playoffs. But the Niners didn't have any clue about what they were doing. It really makes you wonder for a minute. Because the Niners really, it's just baffling to think that they didn't understand the moment. And really, how are they going to be able to, I don't know if they get, I mean, there's a possibility they get back to the Super Bowl. I think they got a better chance than some teams. But with the way that next year the NFC could potentially be, because let me tell you, the Lions, I think they're going to be pretty good next season. Niners, I think, will be okay. But I don't know if they're going to get to the Super Bowl next season. I'll be honest. The Packers are a team I would be scared to play next season, because I think after 1 year with Jordan Love, I think they're a team that you're going to want to fear. Because I think they're young and very talented. So I would watch them. And then if Baker Mayfield goes back to the Buccaneers, I would not want to doubt them very much. And then you look at the NFC East. I'm going to tell you what. This upcoming year for the NFC East, do not be shocked if it's a down year. Cowboys, I don't think are going to be all that good. I don't see the Eagles being as good as what they were the last 2 years. So that's the thing. NFC East, I don't think they're going to be much of a count. I mean, the Rams, watch out for them, especially another year of Puka Nacua as a receiver for them, and Matthew Stafford coming back. I mean, Rams, be scared of them. And so I think there's a bunch of teams within the NFC that could potentially be really good. So if you're the Niners, this, I feel like, if you were going to get a Super Bowl, if you were going to beat the monster that is Kansas City, you had to go take it from them in this game. San Francisco there was never a moment where it seemed like they had a chance to really take the game. There's a thing that you have to do, and that is when you are in the National Football League and you're going up against one of the best player in the league at the moment, because let's be honest, Mahomes may not have won the MVP this past year, but he's the best player in the league. Nobody is going to question that. Patrick Mahomes right now is the best player in the NFL. And when you're playing Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, it doesn't matter how terrible they've looked throughout the season. When it's the playoffs, especially the Super Bowl, you got to go take it. Now, here's the thing. The one Super Bowl Patrick Mahomes has lost. Who was it to? Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What has Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes got in common? One, they're two of the best quarterbacks to have ever played this game. That's right, Patrick Mahomes is already in that tier. But then, think about this. Both of them understand what it takes to win. That's what makes great quarterbacks. That's what makes good players in the National Football League. Understanding the moment and knowing if you don't put in your best effort, if you don't go take it, and if you're playing a legend, that legend will take it from you in a heartbeat. You give them every little ounce, and they will take it. And that's what Mahomes did in this game. It wasn't their best game. I mean, let's be honest. It was not their best game if you're Kansas City. But you know what? You have Patrick Mahomes. And I think they did a great job of coming back and winning that game. Now, one of the things, Steve Wilkes, the defensive coordinator, got fired after the Super Bowl. I got to be honest. The play calling down the stretch it didn't make sense at all. And people are fussing, oh, Shanahan, why are you firing Steve Wilkes? Let me tell you, the play calling was terrible. And if I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not shocked the guy's fired, because go back and look at the other games within the NFL, within the NFC playoffs that they played against Green Bay. There were so many blown coverages in that game. I mean, Green Bay, the fact that Green Bay lost that game, I guess, is a testament to the way that San Francisco found a way to win the game. But then you look at against Detroit, man, they got lit up. And the fact that Detroit lost that game is a shocker. So, and then, of course, the Super Bowl, it came to bite them because you're playing Kansas City. So, in the end, Steve Wilkes getting fired, I'm not shocked. Because they could be a lot better. Like a whole lot better. And I mean, the thing that just gets me is just like the play calling. You got look at the talent the Niners have on defense. And that's what you're putting out there? As far as, like, how they're playing? And I understand. You're going to say, like, people are going to say, oh, Dre Greenlaw. But it's still, look at some of these other players you got on the defense. You've got a great defense there in San Francisco. When Robert Saleh was the defensive coordinator, they did a good job. Which, to be honest with you, I mean, I don't think he gets fired this season, but next season, potentially. Could he be back in San Francisco as DC? And then D'Amico Ryans, who, I got to take some. D'Amico Ryans, watch the Houston Texans. They are going to be a team to watch out for years, especially you got C.J. Stroud as your quarterback. But D'Amico Ryans, he's a great coach. Steve Wilkes is not a good coach. So, it shows up. It shows up. When you got the same defense, and you got Robert Saleh calling the defense one year, you got D'Amico Ryans another year, and then you got Steve Wilkes. Go watch the defenses. Just, you have to watch it to see it. So, that's the thing that I saw. Steve Wilkes, I'm not shocked. Will he get another job in the NFL? I mean, probably. Because, I got to say this. There are some coaches within the NFL, it doesn't matter. They haven't done great, but yet they still get jobs. And it's like, why? For instance, okay, look, Raheem Morris as a head coach, it's not been good, but Atlanta hired him? What are we doing? But, I mean, that's another conversation for another day, if you want to be honest. So, now, of course, we're still talking about the Super Bowl, folks. But I wanted to talk about something that I really care about within the NFL and when I'm watching a game. And really, that is, I want to talk about the announcers of the game. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo. I thought that the majority of the game they did a really good job calling the game. And I thought Tony Romo, people have been complaining for the last 2 years, oh, he's loud, he won't get out of the way for Jim to actually just do his thing. I could kind of see a little bit of that complaint. And I thought most of the game, really, Tony Romo was doing a good job. But then overtime came, and I'll say this. I think what botched the call was the fact, which he did, I mean, it's good information he gave us. I thought it was helpful information to know after the game-winning touchdown, but it was at a bad time. Because most of the time, what you see is that you want your announcer to either, like, the analyst really, after the game-winning touchdown, you don't want them saying anything for a couple minutes because you either want the play-by-play guy to make a statement that really just hits home with the moment, or you want the announcers sit back for about a minute and just let the crowd tell the story of the game. And that's not what Romo did. He jumped in, which what he said I thought was a lot of great information, like I said. And he talked about the call that was made and how that it was the Andy Reid special. And I'll say this. I think that Tony Romo is a good analyst, but I just think that sometimes people, and I mean, I could see some of the complaints about he just jumped in there and just didn't let the moment sink in, and he just had to jump in there and talk. And here's my thing. It's that he's been working this job for, this was his 6th year. It is a little shocking that there still is some of those moments where it's like, you should be past that which I'll call them growing pains within the broadcast booth. You should be past that. So that's a little concerning from the standpoint of being the viewer and consuming this product. Now, I will say this. Do I think he should be replaced in the number one booth? No. I think Tony Romo, he is a good enough analyst. And really, if I'm going to be honest with you, I guess the best comparison I've got for Tony Romo is really, I think it's a lot like Chris Collinsworth in a way. And here's why. I think after a play, both of them are really good about just showing you how the play is broken down, and they can tell you the X's and O's and tell you how everything developed within the play. And especially there at the end of the game, I was like, oh, this does, even though this is not the appropriate moment for that, but I still think that if you think about it, Chris Collinsworth and Tony Romo, I think, have a lot in common with the way that they approach that. And so, again, I don't think Tony Romo should be taken off the broadcast booth. There's been that rumor that if the NFL today is going to shake things up, Tony Romo, they may just push him to the studio like they did Phil Simms a couple years ago, and then possibly go get Greg Olson from Fox and put him in the booth with Jim Nantz. The thing is, though, it still is just very... You don't know what it will be like if you were to go get Greg Olson. Because maybe for a couple years it may be good, and then a couple years later, you're not good again. And so, that's the thing, is I don't know if the viewers are really ever going to be pleased with the product that CBS puts out as far as the broadcast booth. I don't think there's a lot of people saying Jim Nantz does a terrible job. I just think that it's the analysts that people just complain about and complain and complain and complain. And so, I just think that Tony Romo, I didn't think the broadcast was that bad. Now, of course, another moment that people are talking about was when Travis Kelce bumped Andy Reid and was yelling in his face, and Jim Nantz and Tony Romo really kind of brushed it aside. And that, I will say, I wish they kind of would have talked about that a little bit more and kind of tried to explain why they thought it was inappropriate to do that. Because let's be honest, that crossed the line. You don't yell at your coach like that. And the fact that the broadcasters just kind of brushed that aside is kind of not a good look for Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, I think. I think they should have addressed it. But then again, they didn't, and it's in the past. But I'm not going to say Jim Nantz and Tony Romo should be broken up. I think that's one of the best broadcast booths within the NFL right now. Really, the number one crews, I think, are pretty good teams. Except, I will say this, the number one team, Val Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit, which I think, let me be honest, people fuss about Al Michaels. I think he does a fine job. It's Kirk Herbstreit that I can't stand listening to on Prime Video. But that's just another conversation for another day. But, again, CBS, I don't think they need to change their number one broadcast team at all. I think it's fine. Don't mess with it. They're fine. And then you look at studio coverage. I'll say this. Before the Super Bowl, I was like, okay, just leave it alone. It's fine, CBS. But then watching it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just a mess. And the reason why I say it is just that, one, it's just dull. It's just nothing to the pregame. Two, the way that they don't work together very well, I don't think. It's the way that, Phil Simms, Bill Cowher, and Boomer Esiason, it just seems like there's just a disconnect between the group. And so it's just dull and disconnected and disjointed. That's why I think that it's not a shocker if CBS pretty much releases Phil Simms, Bill Cowher, and Boomer Esiason. I'm not shocked at all if they're gone. Now, what do I think about the pregame? Who do I think could potentially fill some of those voids? Well, I got to say this. I actually enjoy the part where it was Ian Eagle, Matt Ryan, and Jason McCourty at one point whenever the main crew was trying to get to the stadium. I actually thought that Matt Ryan and Jason McCourty, they did a pretty good job on the pregame. I'll say this also. J.J. Watt, I think he is an upcoming star within the media world. So, what would Cooper Naylor do for that NFL Today crew? Well, first of all, I'm probably getting rid of Phil Simms, Bill Cowher, and Boomer Esiason because I don't think that they're just dull, and I think for today's viewers, they just don't bring a lot to the table. But you add in Matt Ryan and Jason McCourty, and then find possibly if, say if Jason Kelsey were to accept the deal, and he hasn't had an interview with CBS, I don't think. But if you were to get a guy like Jason Kelsey in there, I think it changes the whole dynamic of the show. And really, I think the thing that they've got to keep in mind is that go look at Fox NFL Sunday. Clearly, Fox NFL Sunday is the best pregame coverage you have in the NFL. Look at the way they do it. They find that perfect blend of talking about football and then finding a way to enjoy themselves while doing it. You got the big personalities of Terry Bradshaw and Jimmy Johnson, Rob Gronkowski and Michael Strahan and Howie Long. So I think that's what, when you look at it from CBS, if you get Jason Kelsey, you get like the same type of energy that Rob Gronkowski brings to Fox, which is a more fun, upbeat kind of crew. And then you got the guys like Terry Bradshaw and Jimmy Johnson and Michael Strahan and Howie Long who are going to be focused on the football, which I think that if you look at it, if you bring Matt Ryan and Jason McCourty in, and then you got Nate Burleson and J.J. Watt, it's going to be interesting for the football-centric viewer. I think they'll bring a lot to it. So, I'll say this. Fox NFL Sunday, they did an okay job at the Super Bowl. It's too much. They're not good enough, and really it's not a shocker to see that they're going to possibly blow up the show. And really, James Brown, I haven't addressed him yet, but I thought he did a pretty good job. I will say the only thing is that here in the last few years, networks like CBS and Fox have gotten so many people on their panel that it's too much. But the only reason why I said they could possibly add Jason Kelsey, Matt Ryan, and Jason McCourty to the team is because that's just a trend in today's society, and the way that NFL panels are done with CBS and Fox is they put as many people on the air as possible. So, take it as you want it, but I think possibly CBS, if they move in a new direction with the NFL Today, they could possibly make a really great show. So, but yeah, that's my recap of the Super Bowl. Of course, we talked about the game, and then we talked about the broadcast side of things, which I didn't even dive into the ads, but the ads, I'll be honest, in these last few years, the ads really haven't been incredible, in my opinion. They've just kind of been mid-tier, it's just, not great. So, that's just all I got to say about the Super Bowl. But next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about announcers. Ryan Clark, his contract has expired with ESPN. Once we get more information next week, we'll probably dive into that a little bit. Also, Colton Naylor real quick has a question saying, where do you think Belichick should go? Most likely, I think he goes into media somewhere, and where that is, I don't know. But I will say this, that if Belichick wants to get into the broadcasting world, and let's say Ryan Clark doesn't come back to ESPN, well, why doesn't ESPN go get him, put him on the pregame show, and really, to be honest with you, I think they'll make their pregame show a little bit better, because I'm not going to lie, Ryan Clark doesn't bring anything to Monday Night Countdown. Sorry to anybody who's a Ryan Clark fan, but that's just opinion from my side of things. And then you're asking about the Arnold Schwarzenegger commercial during the Super Bowl. Actually, that was probably the best commercial. If you don't know what I'm talking about, he's trying to say neighbor, but you know how Arnold, he has that strong accent still, and so he cannot pronounce neighbor. It's more like neighbor, and so it's kind of funny. So, yeah. But either way, we want to thank you for listening to tonight's edition of the Cooper Naylor Show. With that,